show for you today. I've got David Zere from Real America's Voice. We're going to talk about what's going on in the Department of War. We're scaling up across the board and getting ready for what? That's the question. Also, we're honored to be back with my colleague, David Zere. He's become quite the war reporter at Real America's Voice, and I really appreciate him coming on. I want to hear about your recent meetings at Space Force. You went to, what was it, a conference, or what was it you went to?
Yeah, I attended SpaceCom, also known as Space Congress 2026. It's where all the space geeks go, but it's also defense contractors, kids in the robotics competition, Space Force, U.S. Space Command took a whole day for a space mobility conference. And I got to interact with a lot of great people, including an interview with four-star General Commander of U.S. Space Command, Stephen Whiting, which was really cool. Couldn't have been nicer. And that's like the tenor of what's going on. They're very nice over there at the Pentagon.
Yeah. Isn't it? So we met at the Pentagon, but what's the vibe in the Space Force right now? What are you feeling coming out of that? Because I haven't really gone down that rabbit hole yet.
Well, a lot of unity. And according to Trump's Defense Acquisition Executive Order that was codified in the NDAA, House Armed Services Committee, bipartisan support, which is usual for the NDAA, right, in the end. But it's really meaningful because it's codified now, and it's going to be delivering rapid capabilities to the military of weapon systems in the hands of the warfighters, defense systems, logistical supply chains, and other, in cooperation with private industry and academia. And it was really interesting because, you and I have covered these from the Army side of things with the airborne. Right. We'll talk about that if you want. And then Naval Rapid Capabilities, which is a new office as of October with Secretary of the Navy John Phelan, a civilian appointed by Trump, who was handled Michael Dell's wealth originally, doing a phenomenal job down there. But Space Command is the same, right? So it's like the fifth branch of service here, I guess, outside of the Coast Guard. It's the other outside branch, but it's kind of like SOCOM. It could reach across and tap into any branch. Was critical in the Venezuela operation, in Iran, in the bombings, providing, I guess, signals intelligence, GPS tracking, other types of services, cybersecurity. Falls under U.S. Space Command, and Space Force is the recruiting arm of that, right? So a lot of concerns in Space Command right now. One is China may have a terrestrial-based laser weapon that can attack our assets in low orbit. You have LEO, MEO, and GEO, right? And the lower orbit stuff, we're starting to push stuff deeper in space. We're worried about ASAT technology, anti-satellite missiles that other countries may have, like we developed early on with the F-15, going up to 60, 80,000 feet, right? And then shooting a missile in space. Also, hunter-killer satellites that could even have robot modular arm attachments and rip apart our satellites and shoot munitions. So, we've always talked about this stuff, like going back to the 80s. I have defense books, publications like, the future of space. And we're all like, okay, yeah, that's way out there. But it's here. And now the Russians may be violating every treaty in the book by maybe, according to some reports, and the Space Command's on it, a WMD up there, which could wipe out a lot of satellites. And in addition to that, the Chinese are making way for 100,000 new orbits, where, say, Starlink is about 10,000 satellites, I believe, where they're making room. They want to dominate space. They may beat us back to the moon before Artemis 2 gets there. There's water on the South Pole, maybe on the moon, and they could use that to extract, I guess, hydrogen and other stuff and make a moon-based colony or settlement, maybe, right? And I guess that's the target for interplanetary travel, to test that out, maybe to get to Mars one day. But also there's rare earth stuff, and the moon's about 1/6 of the surface of Earth, I think. It's probably the size of Asia, if I had to guess. It's important. And, right now the Chinese are hyper-focused. Maybe their technology isn't as good as ours, but if you take that Red Storm Rising philosophy where you could have, 10 kitchen bombs coming towards a carrier group, maybe one gets through, right? So maybe they're taking this mass kind of targeting type thing to mess with our assets in space. It's really a danger.
So did you get the vibe, like you mentioned we were at Fort Bragg together and we went through the Joint Innovation Outpost and their grand opening of their facility and saw
Yeah.
how the academia and the military and industry are all working together really to focus on what the warfighter needs on the ground, not necessarily, as I say, the defense contractors or in the Beltway. Do you get that vibe in Space Force that they have that same, I guess,
Oh,
leading
oh,
edge? Really?
I did 20 interviews there with private defense
Mm-hmm.
contractors. The spaceport in Mojave Spaceport
Mm-hmm.
at Bhutan in California, they cooperate with Edwards Air Force Base. They tested the XB-1 boom recently, which broke the sound barrier with no
Mm-hmm.
noise. Could change the dynamics of civilian and military aviation going forward. Also, they are testing hypersonic aircraft there, supposedly off the record,
Mm-hmm.
probably. And spaceports popping up all over the world. But you think about all the couplings and the modular items and the robot arms and the cybersecurity and all these elements. You can't do it without this mass cooperation. So probably more than any branch, Space Command is working with the private sector to develop state-of-the-art stuff, targeting STEM students out of Purdue University. The Cradle of Astronauts, 30 astronauts came out of the private university, right? Also, UCF, University of Central Florida, worked with the Apollo program. Florida's front and central. Artemis 2 will be the largest payload ever launched, I think, in Florida if it successfully takes off. Maybe Friday, that's the launch window, and that'll circle the moon. And the next mission would be maybe to land back on the moon for the 7th time. So yeah, absolutely, 100%. The cooperation. Now, I wasn't covering the Pentagon when I was a kid. I was in the Soviet Union in '86, and I saw the tanks in the street and the bread and shoe lines. And we always talked about how the U.S. was outspending the Soviets, and we had more of like a private sector mentality. We weren't spending 9% of our GDP on the military; we were spending 3%, but we still had superior product. Pershing missiles in Europe changed the dynamic of MAD and all that. But it seems like everybody's on the same page. The bureaucracy sounds like it's cut down a little bit. Stuff getting to the marketplace and to our warfighters quicker. Navy cooperating and partnering with Palantir for Shipbuild OS. We used to produce a ship every 42 days in World War II, and now we have under 380 ships, I think, in our fleet. The Constellation freighters in question, the Littoral Combat Class, has its challenges. So I think it was just a spectacular moment. They're getting rid of the DEI stuff. They're focused on the mission, and nothing's perfect. It's still a bureaucracy, I'm sure. But I really like the attitude of anybody I've interacted with.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
A warm welcome here at the National Press Club. Welcome to the journalists, welcome to the Embraer team, and welcome to the other guests that we have here. We're going to announce, and as some of you guessed it right when they came in, the first E2 order by an American operator. And that operator is Avello. We believe this is really a strategic shift to unlock profitability for the customer. I'm very pleased that we have Andrew Levy here as the CEO of Avello, and I'm very pleased to give the stage to share a little bit more about what Avello is going to do with the E2 195. Thank you very much.
Couldn't be more excited to be here as part of this historic announcement. We have such a great cultural fit as companies, so we're very, very excited to be Embraer's newest customer. We launched our airline in April of 21, and our target is focusing on small secondary airports of large metro areas. We've carried over 8 million customers since we started on 63,000 flights. And we've done all these things with 1,200 of the greatest crew members I could ever imagine having, and many of them are here with me today. This is the right airplane for us. It's going to open up opportunities for us that no other aircraft can serve. The best thing about the airplane, of course, is you will not find a middle seat on this airplane. It doesn't exist. We won't have any to offer. It's going to be the best cabin in the United States, and we're so excited about that. This is going to elevate our experience to the highest level, and we think our customers are absolutely going to love the airplane.
So we've talked about this before, but how do you feel the new, I guess, Pentagon Media Press Corps is working as we're what, 2 months into this now, maybe 3?
Yeah.
How do you
Well,
feel it's
listen,
going?
you can't walk around the White House and do whatever you want. You'll get shot. So why should they be
Yeah.
able to go all over the Pentagon? I think the lawyers jumped the gun on this when they were asked to sign this new agreement. Now, I think some of the media is probably ruining their decision because there were a lot of good reporters down there, right? But they were cornering people in the hallways. They didn't have proper ID. They weren't being escorted. They weren't going with official business of the Pentagon. And, I think they felt there were leaks and other type of activities. But when we came in there, everyone was saying, oh, the Trump sycophants are there and the WAPO and all this stuff was. But you and I and others and Matt Gaetz slammed them on the F-35 readiness capability at 40%. It should be at 95. We asked them about, reinstating our troops who were dishonorably discharged with the vax refusal. We pressed on a lot of issues, and I feel like they're listening. They came out with stories maybe related to some of our efforts, and they really like us because we're not out there to be Woodward and Bernstein. I think we're out there to convey their message, and if we see something wrong, to call them out on it.
Yeah, and to really be what reporters are is, do research, look at a story, find out where the deficiencies are, and be the fourth estate, if you will. What are you working on now, David? You got anything in the hopper?
Yeah, I've got so many exciting things going on. I spent the last 3 weeks on the ground. I was in Minneapolis getting assaulted. Our security had to pull their weapons out, basically. We were surrounded by 30,000 maniacs in Minneapolis. The ring-nosed, angry, middle-aged, liberal white woman was attacking us, assaulted my cameraman in a restaurant by throwing a giant drink in his face just from the Real America's Voice logo on her jacket. We were surrounded in Powderhorn Park. No cops on the ground by design. They were up ahead in a helicopter, but they wanted the chaos, I feel. And all these people started targeting us. I was the only one in the crowd, except for Nick Sorter, maybe 1 or 2 others. I didn't even see anybody, that we were in the ground doing interviews on the ground, and we were chased out. We were bumped. We were blocked. They tried to knock out our windows on our van. It was very serious. We called the police. Nobody came. And then I was at the Minneapolis riots the night before when they were slamming the hotel canopy windows and ripped the door off the hinges and went in and actually got inside the hotel where ICE was staying in downtown Minneapolis. And Waltz finally had the state troopers come in and clean it out. So I got that going. I was at Fort Bragg with you. I was there for the Freedom 250 in North Carolina, where they have these 6 mobile museums, another government joint private partnership where they had these 6 trucks, semis, modular, interactive museums called Freedom Trucks that'll be touring the country up until America 250, where they have these museums built by Spevco, a North Carolina company. North Carolina at the epicenter of defense industry, high tech, high point, the research triangle, there's jobs, doing very well compared to both states. And then being at Spacecom. I have a surprise coming next week. I can talk about it next week with DOW. It'll be really, really neat this weekend, early next week. And I'll be on the ground. I was with Trump in Clive, Iowa last week on the ground in Des Moines because he's there to shore up congressional support for Marionette Miller Meeks, who wasn't always a big Trumper, and Zach Nunn, who some say is a little bit rhino, but he's a somewhat conservative guy. But they are leaning toss-up. And if they lose those 2 seats in Iowa, they only can afford to lose 2 more seats nationwide in all the congressional races, and the Republicans lose the House. So Trump is going to spend every week on the ground across America in a different congressional district, I believe, every week or 2 or 3. And hopefully I'll be covering many of those. I'm covering the midterms. I'm doing interviews on the ground. As things come up, I'm Johnny on the spot for them. I'm not a military guy. I'm a military buff. I was in the Civil Air Patrol, Air Force Auxiliary for 5 years as a teenager. I lost my best friend in 9/11. So I, started a veterans group in my late 20s, early 30s. But I always used to drive to D.C. when I was 15 years old to get the latest defense budget primer from the government printing office and the Grenada documents, about 800 pages of all the weapons we captured on the ground in Grenada from Slavic, Iron Curtain countries that were funding and weaponizing the 800 Cuban mercenaries who pretended to be building the runway over there, so like this is what I love to do. I cover the White House, the Capitol Hill, but I'm not the full-time correspondent for those. But I'm really getting my teeth into the Pentagon, gaining trust with these people. I'm respectful. and we'll see, how that goes. And I just feel that there's energy there that's not distracted with divisiveness and throwing this guy out for not doing this, and this guy getting his transgender surgery paid for, and then decide whether it was a skirt or not. Sorry to run on, but
No.
I feel like it's a better place, and I'm really honored to be part of it.
Yeah, me too. I'm wondering when the next press briefing will be. Have you heard anything about that? Because it's been a few months.
Well, I know, I think on Friday there's Hegseth will be maybe at an enlistment ceremony somewhere.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be more pressers coming up. I know that Homeland Security had a presser today on the border in Nogales. We were invited to. I don't know if we sent assets there, but they're going to finish the border wall. And they have, this $42 billion or whatever in funding or so. And hopefully it'll be done before the midterms in case the Republicans lose it. So we always have our ear to the ground. We're excited to be part of anything that's going on. We've taken several trips with Pete Hegseth to California to private industry with Benny Ray Harmony, one of our new correspondents. It's also a congressional and White House correspondent. And, Rav is everywhere. So we're really engaged. It's a new media. It's a new media, and you don't have to be Walter Cronkite.
No, you just have to be interested and work hard and be a little honest, and you'll build trust, as you said. That's fantastic. David, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Todd, listen, I love your work, and your service to our country, and keep it up. And it's an honor to know you.
Yeah, we'll see each other, I'm sure, somewhere soon. Take care.
Great.